So the truck company is straight wire, lock scanning, pleasure moments, reducing the negative aspect of the building that's on fire to increase the survivability of the victim that's trapped in the building. It's the same thing with the auditing. Now the engine company comes in with the hoses, and what do? They extinguish the fire. So what they do is they locate the fire, and what would the fire represent in the language of Dianetics?
The demon circuit.
Say again?
Is it demon circuit?
Uh, it could be. It could be. It could be. I'm looking for something else because
Ingram.
huh?
Ingram.
And we want to get a little more specific. It is the engram. So the room where the fire is, we'll say that that's the house is the reactive mind. We'll say the particular room is the engram. But the fire itself, it's what's causing all the problems in this building right now, right? Come on, family.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
So the fire, we always look for the seat of the fire. The seat of the fire is the basic.
Basic.
Okay. So the truck company is alleviating what's taking place right now, taking some charge off of it, because sometimes the engram is so charged you can't get close to it, right?
Right.
It's Sister Phyllis. Anytime you would like to share your expertise, by all means, we would love to hear your feedback as well. Anytime there's some scientists on the line, I definitely want to hear from you. So the truck company is making it so that the fire is approachable. Okay, sometimes you might have what's called a heavy engram or an occluded case. Okay, the occluded case, the heavy engram, that's the same as a building that's on fire. The truck company allows us to get close to the seat of the fire and save life. The engine company comes in and they actually extinguish the fire. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Brother Lukeman,
Yes, ma'am.
As you're talking, I'm getting a picture of, a building on fire and the firemen inside trying to find the people and people trying to get out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And so the source of the fire, would that be what actually started the fire in the first place?
Yes, ma'am. The seat of the fire is where it originates.
Where it originates. So that would be, you said at the root of an engram is always what somebody said, or what was said to a person.
What was
that would be
go ahead.
So would that be the root of the fire, the source of the fire?
The source of the fire it would be an error or a mistake that was made by someone. An electrical wire that might not have been wrapped properly. Someone, and I'm going based on things that we've experienced. You have the plugs with the 3 prongs in them.
Right.
You have the 2 prongs, the one ground, but you might have an outlet that only has the 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there have been cases where people will break off that 3rd one in order to hook in the air conditioning and don't realize that by doing that, you've just created a problem that will result in a fire. So fires are produced by errors.
So in a Dianetic language, then that would be what was said to a person.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought that was, either a mistake or an error that they made themselves, or they attributed what somebody else said.
Like what Sister Denise was just talking about, right?
Right. And
yes, ma'am.
And it really wasn't you at all. It was this other situation.
Mm-hmm.
So that starts the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we talk about the time track and all of the similar incidences, I thought about when you're in a burning building, oftentimes they'll show you another fire breaks out somewhere else.
That's
It
right.
started from the original fire. But now
That's a
you're dealing
chain.
with multiple fires all over the place,
Uh-huh.
not necessarily just the original fire.
Yes, ma'am. So what happens is based on the type of building and the structure, the fire travels. So the fire will travel, and sometimes fire will actually hide. And I'll show you I'll remind me, I'll show you a clip of a fire that we just did actually 2 weeks ago, right before we went down to Florida. Fire can hide, fire can travel. It can start one place and then it develops to someplace else, just like aberration, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
And
yes,
it,
sir.
and based on what Sister Denise said, and based on the statement you just made, Sister Anya, it reminds me, L. Ron Hubbard has a concept called answer hunger. Has anyone ever heard that before? Answer hunger.
Answer, huh?
Hunger.
What's, oh, answer, huh?
Has anyone ever heard that
No.
before?
No, sir.
Okay. In Dianetics 55, the concept of answer hunger is brought up, and answer hunger is at the root of our aberration. And I'll explain to you what it is as best I can. I'm still studying this concept, but I believe I have enough understanding to explain it. So you have what's called the cycle of communication, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So what happens is in a cycle of communication, Sister Sharon, do you want me to wait or do you want to go ahead?
Yes, you had asked the question, but I'm at work. I was driving, so you asked the question,
Okay.
and I said, "Demon Circus," but is it a lock? To answer your question,
Is what a lot?
I forgot the question. Um, and then you said it was related to a fire starting in the building.
Okay,
So,
so we were using the building as a demo kit to kind of explain the reactive mind and aberration. So
right.
when the truck company goes in, there's four things that they'll do. The first thing is they got to enter the building.
Right.
Okay. They have to search for the fire and they have to
Right.
search for life or
Mhm.
or individuals that might be trapped. They have to vent the building
Mhm.
and they have to isolate the fire. So if the fire is in a certain room, one of the first things they'll do is they close that door.
Mhm.
They'll contact by radio by engine company, like truck 1, engine 3. The fire is in on the second floor, bedroom, top of the stairs to the left. Okay, so now by that time, what they're doing, they've located the fire. Now they go search the rest of the house for victims. Well, we're doing the same thing in as we're auditing. You know, again, auditors are mental and spiritual firefighters. So one of
Right.
the first things we do when we're processing a case, you know, the first thing we do is we have to gain entry, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we first start a session, you know, one of the first things we do, we were taught, is to test the perceptics. Yeah. Yes.
Right. To see if the person is accessible.
Exactly. That's like trying to see, can we get into the house? Is the door already open or do I got to break it open? Okay. In the
Yes, sir.
fire service, one of the primary rules is try before you pry. There's nothing more embarrassing. I've never done it, but I've seen it, where you're sitting there trying to break open the door and someone comes up and just turns the doorknob and goes in. Okay. Try before you pry. Is the case occluded or is it wide open? Is the
Yes,
door
sir.
locked or is it unlocked? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so same thing with auditing. Got to get into the case. Now what we're doing is now we're searching, right?
Yes, sir.
Now we're searching. We're looking for the file clerk. You know, the file clerk is like the truck officer. The file clerk is going to take you where you need to go. Okay. The file clerk works with us. Once we find that, now we can isolate that. Now, venting is when you actually break the windows, you're releasing the smoke and releasing the hot gases. In Dianetic language, that's called removing the charge. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, oh, wait a minute, I got these. Let me see what this is saying in the chat real quick. I'm sorry. Okay. Not a problem, Sister Phyllis. We will thank you for spending some time with us. Inshallah, this will be uploaded to YouTube hopefully before 2 o'clock. So whatever you miss, you'll be able to catch it at your convenience. But thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, family, for sharing. I appreciate it. I did learn something, and I pray that when I come back, that it'll be a more quiet day. It's been busy in my house, and I don't understand how that happened today.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but thank you.
You're very welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, family.
Wa alaikum salam. Okay. So then once you find the fire, you have to isolate it. You close the doors. One of the reasons why buildings burn down is people run out. They leave the doors open. So what happens is you create a flow path. So the fire likes to travel. It don't like to stay still. It's just like aberration. Aberration is not going to stay in one part of our life, correct?
Oh, that's correct.
So aberration, all that aberrated thought is like fire. So a fire that started in 1975 is going to travel to certain things in 1977, in 1982, in 1994. Those are called chains, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's kind of where we were going. And then when the engine company comes in, they put the fire out. So now I've got to the root or the basic on a chain, or hopefully the basic, correct? Because if I can blow off, and I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, we had a fire that started on the back porch of a building. The first arriving engine was able to get inside and start the knockdown, but it started to what we call expose to the next building. So when buildings are close together, the fire will jump from building to building. Okay. So if you have houses all in a row and fire jumping, that's kind of like a chain, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So by the time we got there, we grabbed the line off, we go into the backyard, and I knocked down the fire on the one building, and it was just starting to hit the second building. And we were able to just knock that down real quick. We prevent it from jumping. Okay. The same thing in auditing. You know, we're trying to localize the basic of what's going on. And then once we can find the basic is what's causing the aberration in the other parts of someone's life, right? In the other different years in the life, correct?
Correct. Brother Luke,
Yes, ma'am.
You said you knocked the other building down before?
No, the fire. The language we use is knock down. We knocked down the fire. We didn't knock down the building.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a knockdown on the fire.
Oh, okay.
We
I
called
thought
it.
you was just, it didn't attach to the other building where you fight two fires now.
It almost did. There was the house, there's the driveway, and then there's the other house. But what happens is fire will spread. It's interesting because it's the same thing as aberration. Fire spreads in three ways. It either spreads by contact, which is called conduction. It spreads by convection, and it spreads by radiation. And aberration does the same thing. Conduction means direct contact, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the word conduction, and the word conduction is the word conduct, yes?
Yes, sir.
So sometimes just being in contact with a person who has poor conduct, their aberration can jump over to us, correct?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, by us being in contact with certain people.
Contagious.
Yes, ma'am.
Contagious aberration.
Yes, ma'am. That's contagion by aberration.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Sister Sharon, does that answer your question? I know she's at work, so she might be going back and forth. Okay. Oh, answer hunger. Let me get back to that. that has to do with what Sister Denise and Sister Sharon, Sister Ani were talking about. So when you have a cycle of communication, so he says you have to have inflow as well as outflow. So when someone is speaking to someone, they're expecting a response, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So where we become aberrated is when someone is constantly speaking and you don't allow the other person to respond. That can cause aberration. And when a person is speaking to another person and that person won't respond, it causes aberration in the other person. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yes, sir.
Okay, I'll give you an example. You ever have a parent that was just chewing your ear off, blah, 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 and you go to say something, they say, shut up, don't say nothing. You ain't got nothing to say, right?
Yes, sir.
Was it
Okay, so you got,
after they asked you the question, they
Yeah.
didn't give you time to say
yeah,
that?
they asked, didn't I tell you? Didn't I? And now I'm going back on my time track. I'm seeing my dad. Didn't I tell you? And you want to go say, shut up. Ain't no one. So you're asking me questions, but you don't want me to respond. That causes aberration. And,
Yes, sir.
and the other part is when they're asking questions, well, what time did I tell you? And this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other. And when you don't say anything, you're like, say something, you know? So that's causing aberration on both sides. So what answer hunger is when certain events take place and there are questions that you have, but you never get an answer. It's like some of our aberration is based on things took place in our past that produced questions that we never got answers to, correct?
That's correct.
So when we shared those events with other people, they gave us what they thought was the answer. And because we never got an answer and we needed an answer, we accepted what other people told us who weren't even there, or we fabricated our own answer to help us deal with this situation. But that reasoning was incorrect. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So answer hunger, not knowing. And then when we go back in session and we get to the root of what take place and we finally realize, you mean to tell me my whole life, it wasn't even this, it was this. What happened? You got an answer. Yes.
Yes, sir.
And when you got the answer, that dispelled the aberration. Does that make sense now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
That cover everything,
Ooh.
Sister Sharon?
Yes, sir. It made me think about how I joined the nation. Being in the church,
Right.
asked questions about God and Jesus, and nobody knew, not even the pastor or the bishop. I'm like, the truth is not here.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I ended up joining the nation, because I heard the truth and my questions was answered.
So the minister satisfied the answer hunger.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes, sir.
The minister,
Yes, sir.
so we didn't realize the first time we heard the minister speak, we were being processed.
No, we didn't.
Right.
Well, look, I don't know why you talking about this. My mind went back. Yes, we are definitely being processed.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody keeps you up on a cassette tape at 2:00 in the morning. You being processed. You
So
know,
you mean to tell
and
me
it's
that
just
we were being processed through cassette tapes?
through cassette tapes. Do you hear me? You couldn't go to sleep. It's like, I don't know, something had you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. The why. Why is this? Why is that? That hunger answer.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know. But instead of, I did eventually leave the church, but they put me out because they said I'm not supposed to question God. I said, I'm not questioning God. I'm questioning you.
Okay. Yes.
You know, I mean, are you God? I mean, I don't know. know. I just need that hunger answer as you talking about.
Mhm.
And it made me think about that. Oh my goodness.
Mhm. So let me just throw this out here real quick. And whoever wants to respond, but first, let me acknowledge Assalamu alaikum, Sister Deborah. If you can hear us. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Rashid.
Walaikum salam, family.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Charlotte.
Walaikum salam. Good to
Yes.
see everyone.
Yes, that sounded like it was high tone. We like that tone. Like that.
Absolutely. This, what what was it? The
Answer hunger.
hunger.
Mhm.
My head just exploded. So praise
Good.
be to Allah. Thank
Good.
you.
That means the atoms are being cracked.
Oh yeah.
And of course, we got to give a shout out to our big brother, Brother Wahid. Assalamu alaikum, sir. And if you can't come off mute, don't worry about it. We know you're sitting there with your smiling face. All right. Who would like to explain lock scanning and straight wire in your own words?
I can go for lock scanning.
Go ahead, go for it.
Okay, let me preface it this way. I remember back when I was in college, I had an incident occur while I was in college that really gave me a real bitter feeling towards the school I went to. I went to Grambling State. It gave me a real bitter feeling towards Grambling State. And so I would I never got into like wearing paraphernalia. You know, once I left college, you know, I mean, for years. I mean, college was like 30 some years ago, right? And I never just wanted to honor it, or talk much about Grambling because of an experience I had, and I got good education and everything. But and what I realized is that whenever a topic, or I would see Grambling and or playing football, or see somebody with some player in there, that feeling would come up about Grambling, and then I realized that was a lot, because it was taking me back somewhere, and it was causing for me to feel a certain way that was negative. So I learned to lock scan, and basically in lock scanning, what I did is I went back to that time period, my experience from freshman all the way up until the senior year of college, and I just I went from freshman up, reviewing some of my experiences that I had at Grambling that were of negative thought to me. And so so the lock scanning is looking at those facsimiles that occurred all the way up until present time, and then coming out of it. And so I lock scanned that maybe about 3 or 4 times, in an evening, at that night, and then here's the results of a successful lock scan. And then it was probably maybe about a week later, I seen some Grambling paraphernalia on the internet, and I was like, man, I want to get one of them shirts. And from there it grew. I started, I would see some of my old classmates on Facebook, and we, go Grambling, and they might win a game. I share the victory, and the bottom line is that the lock scanning process eliminated that lock that was sending me back to that particular era that made me feel a certain way that prevented me from being able to move forward. So that's how I explain lock scanning.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's interesting to offer a demo kit, and then we're going to look at something that the minister had said once before. But when we approach a building, one of the first things we do is we do lock scanning on a physical level. You know, as we approach the door, doors have different types of locks. Does that make sense?
Yes,
You can have a just a key lock. You can have the lock that's in the handle itself. You can have a bolt lock. So depending on the type of lock will dictate the type of tactics we use to break through the door. So on that level, we're doing lock scanning as well. The definition of lock scanning is, it says, a procedure used in the early 1950s to de-intensify chains of locks which were interfering with processing or aberrated to the pre-clear. It was done by contacting an early lock. Oh, wait a minute. It was done by contacting an early lock on the track and going rapidly or slowly through all such similar incidents straight to present time. Done many times, the whole chain of locks being scanned will become ineffective in influencing the person. So this is what it's explained in Science of Survival as well. So you're looking at different, the lock is always connected to the engram. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now, as we're talking, it reminds me of something that the minister spoke about in Savior's Day 2011, when he was going into the whole science behind the tech. Do we remember Savior's Day 2011?
Yes.
And he said, when you look at what takes place in the church, as the pastor is speaking, isn't it bringing up emotion? Isn't that what happens?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes,
But what the minister said was the pastors bringing up the emotion, but not releasing the charge. I don't know if he said it exactly that way, but you kind of remember him saying that it brings the church
Yes, sir.
the emotion, but doesn't release it.
right.
So when you look at the minister as he's teaching, but you look at it through the lens of the tech, what is he doing? We could say he's providing a group processing where he's lock scanning, he's straight wiring, and he's producing pleasure moments, correct?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
He does that.
He says that he's going to touch each and every one of us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he said, I'll be at your doorstep. Just wait till I'm coming to your house in just a moment.
Uh-huh. So realize he's speaking. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying how he said, oh, okay, you just sit right there. I'm coming knock on your door in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I'm going all across the board. So don't worry, I'll get to you.
Right.
Yes, sir. I would just remember him saying that, you know, I'm coming straight to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I would say 99% to 100% convinced. If you were to take any of the minister's lectures, look beyond the content, but look at the structure. Look at the structure. You will see processing. Not that the minister learned processing, but it is because I believe our teachings is a level of processing.
It is.
Yes, sir.
If L. Ron Hubbard can process us through self-analysis, okay, that means he's no longer present, but his mind is still present, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
That means he's still present because he's still, through the minister's words, L. Ron Hubbard is still affecting people. Prophet Muhammad is still present. Why? You know, because he's still affecting the lives of people. Well, if the minister is still here and he's teaching, every one of his lectures is a type of processing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Anya.
Okay, my comment was not about lock scanning. It was going whenever you get to straight wire. I
Oh,
wanted to make
we're there, right
clarity.
there. Since you brought it up, that's where we're going.
Okay. I don't know have the official definition of straight wire.
Okay.
But the way I've always thought about it, thought of the meaning of it, and from how it's been explained to me in the past, it's basically whatever the aberration is, or whatever has experience you've had that has brought irritation or pain to you, or some kind of discomfort, dis-ease to you, you're basically the one just talking about it, maybe to another or to a group, whatever, but you're just basically talking about it. And when, for an example of experience that I had, my last visit to the UK, when I went home, at that time, both my biological mother and my stepmother were both alive, living, physically alive at that time. But both of them were ailing. One was terminally ill, had lived past the time that they had given her. And so for the 6 months that I was there, I was running back and forth between two towns, helping to take care of them. And between the two of them, they ran me ragged. Especially my biological mother in particular. I wasn't raised with her. It's difficult to be around her. And though I'd always wanted to have that close bond relationship with her, to be around her was extremely difficult, because at the same time that she wants you there, she pushes you away. And every time I was around her, I would leave her presence just feeling so drained, whatever, with a whole bunch of engrams, just not feeling good about myself. And I would literally walk down the street just in tears, just from having been around her, but at the same time loving her and wanting that bond with her. And so I came back from that visit, that 6 months there, in emotional mess. I really was a mess. And I still have not been audited through that experience. But at the same time, I did go through what I called straight wire, because I couldn't stop talking about it. People ask me, how was your trip? And I would always end up with that subject, talking about the experience in particular with my biological mother, because I just had to keep talking about it, talking to get it all out of me. So I see straight wire as in a sense, it's similar to venting, because you just have to get it out. And it reminds me of, if you've ever seen the scene where a person goes to a psychologist or the psychiatrist, or where they lay you on the couch, and then they say, well, what is, doc, help me with my problem, and he asked you the questions, what's going on? And then you start talking, and you talk and talk and talk. And then your session time is up. And then you say, oh, doc, I feel better. Thank you so much for helping me. But the psychologist hasn't said anything, because you did it all, that reminds me of straight wire. So that's you said in my own words. So
Mhm.
that's my words of what straight wire is.
Okay, yes, ma'am. And you pretty much, you're right on point. Well, I'll give you I'm just gonna read the book definition, and then we're gonna get into our ARC. Straight wire, this is coming from what's called the pilot glossary. It's a type of auditing which uses straight memory. It strings a line between present time and some incident in the past, and strings that line directly and without any detours. Now, let me take a quick break for that. Doesn't the minister do that when he's teaching? Doesn't he speak about certain topics that takes us back to things that we used to do?
Yes, sir. That was the other thing I was going to say too, that with the minister, I feel straight wires as all the time.
Mhm.
Time, yes, sir.
It says the name straight wire comes from, well, no, let me go back. And strings the line directly and without any detours. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind in reading that is a detour could be a justification that we used to do or say a certain thing. Does that make sense? You know, sometimes we might do or say something, but then we justify it.
Hit the door.
Yes.
Hit the door. Hit the door. Tap the door.
Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. Could you say that again?
Yes. So going based on the definition, a type of auditing which uses straight memory, it strings a line between present time and some incident in the past, and strings that line directly and without any detours. And I'm saying the thought that came to my mind was a detour could be a justification. Now here's why I'm saying this. There are certain things that we have said and have done in the past, but we justified it even though it was wrong, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that kind of make sense now, Sister Ania?
And that's a detour.
That's what came to my mind. A detour, if you know, if someone can pull up the word detour, and let's clear it real quick, but that's what popped in my mind. Making a detour means it's no longer a straight line, right?
Right.
Okay, it's no longer a straight line. On a mental level, if it's not a straight line, that means there's a bend in there somewhere, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, which means a justification is, just gotta call it what it is. It's a lie that we tell ourselves to justify what we have done or what we have said or what we are still doing in present time. We justify it.
Okay, so I have a definition.
For detour,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead, sister.
A long or roundabout route that is taken to avoid something or to visit somewhere along the way.
Okay. You know, and now children, you know, what happened was, and you know, and then, you know, what I was doing is, you know, just get straight to the point. The Holy Quran says, speak straight words, right? Minister Farrakhan says, speak straight word, yes?
Right.
Instead of going all around about way. Have you ever asked a child why they did something? They say, well, what I did, and then they go all around here and they try to avoid. They're trying to do a little Neo Matrix. They're trying to avoid what's being said. Does that make sense? Okay, sisters,
Yes, sir.
have you ever had someone in your life and you asked them a question and they went all around about and then
Yes, sir.
okay, okay, and same for the brothers. Now, everything's for real. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Peggy.
Walaikum salam, sir.
How are you?
And I'm well. Assalamu
Okay.
alaikum, family.
Wa alaikum salam.
So basically, when the minister is speaking, he speaks about things and he does take us back. But he doesn't leave us there, correct?
Right.
Okay, he
Right.
doesn't leave us there. He takes us back. He allows us to see things in ourselves, but then and he's also lock scanning us. But then he removes the sting because he teaches us how Allah did not come to judge us.
Right.
The problem is we still carry around the guilt and we still judge ourselves, even though Allah has already thrown that into the sea of forgetfulness, correct?
Right.
And sometimes it's because it could be we're just hanging around the wrong people that keep reminding us of what we did.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's
Brother,
can I share something
Of course.
quick? Okay. This morning while reading after prayer, my husband and I visited the Holy Quran, and it opened up to a section in the Holy Quran that was entitled "The Guilty."
Mhm.
So, we read it and then had a discussion afterwards, and I was sharing with Wahid that where we ended up and what we got out of that section was so deep. I said, that's amusing to me because when I first opened it up and saw the word "the guilty," I automatically went into the mode of, oh boy, what have I done? That Allah is sending me a message now that I'm guilty of doing this, that, and the other, And so it was like a whole scroll of everything I've done that's incorrect, not on point, missing prayers and all sorts of things. It was like a whole list of things I'm guilty of, But what we got out of it, it wasn't that at all. It was Allah trying to show me something entirely different. And we had a big cognition out of the whole thing. And it wasn't anything to do with being guilty of what you had done. So that made me laugh when you just said that, because I was trying to find a big fig leaf to hide myself. But Allah, like you said, he's not come to judge us. He's come here, and if he is pointing out something wrong, it's because he wants to make you better.
Mhm. Mhm.
Man.
Brother
That's-
Lukman, I'm sorry, I
Oh, go
can't
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
can't raise my hand. for
Okay,
some
go ahead.
reason. But can we, before we proceed further, can we go back to lock? Something the brother, I think his name is Rashid, said triggered something in me, and I need to get some clarification on a particular situation so I can get clarity on lock.
Okay.
A situation, it was about 2 years ago. This happened during Savior's Day. A particular sister that, we've had some animosity, touched me during Savior's Day, and I became violently ill during Savior's Day. The area where she touched me, kind of inflamed. My head hurt. I mean, I became a hot mess in that moment and days after. Now, according to the brother's definition of that he experienced at Grambling, that situation where that particular sister, with that sister, is that considered a lock that hasn't been resolved or something? Because even today, when I confront, or not, I should not, confront is not the right word, when we're in each other's presence, and she may reach out to touch or shake my hand or anything, I those advertising things that are in front of car dealerships that are just flailing.
Yes, ma'am.
I become that person trying to avoid her not touching me.
Okay.
So does that mean that lock, that is she a lock for me? And and it's not yet resolved.
Okay. I'll read the definition, and then without you giving too much information, unless you want me to pause this at this time.
No, don't pause. I don't
Okay,
want to
so here's what
interrupt.
I want you to do, if you don't mind. Write down a lot of the information that starts to come to your mind. Write
Okay,
it down.
okay.
Then based on how you're describing it, to me, it sounds like something that possibly we could connect you to one of the other scientists in the room that can straight wire you or lock scan outside of the meeting.
No, right. No, I just wanted to know, is that situation considered a lock?
Okay. So I'm gonna read the definition. As we read the definition, information might come forward. So a lock, by definition, a mental image picture of an incident where one was knowingly or unknowingly reminded of a secondary or engram. Okay. It does not itself contain a blow or a burn or impact, and is not any major cause of misemotion. It does not contain unconsciousness. It may contain a feeling of pain or illness, etc., but is not itself the source of it. It is an analytical moment in which the perceptics of an engram are approximated, thus re-stimulating the engram or bringing it into action, the present time perceptics being erroneously interpreted by the reactive mind to mean that the same condition which produced physical pain once before is now again at hand. Now, based on that definition, I don't know if I would call that a lock.
Okay,
I would say that's possibly re-stimulation.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it sounds.
Okay, now, so if you go to that particular moment, there's a whole list of perceptics that are taking place at that moment in time. And with all those perceptics and that touch, that could have been a key in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as we're talking, did your file clerk go anywhere?
It did not. So I was just trying to make sure it didn't have anything to do with that particular individual.
No, I understand that. And that's my whole point. It's not that individual. But at that moment in time, if it was re-stimulation, there was something about that situation where you were in the past and the present at the same time. And that we could say probably is what caused the
Gotcha. Okay. I gotcha. Okay. So
we know it wasn't that particular system. But
gotcha.
there was enough perceptics, there was something there. To me, that sounds like a key in.
Okay. I can take it from there now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I comment?
Of course.
So you said the word that really kicked off a thought of me. When the sister was describing how when she seen the sister again and the sister reached out to her, I seen that as a secondary
Okay.
that re-stimulated that situation, and then lock scanning is attacking the secondary. More so, I mean, because when I was explaining, I went through the scenario, but in actuality, what I was seeing when I would see Gremlin, it was the secondary that needed to be lock scanned. So in her situation, that's what it sounds. That's what it sounds like to me. That she get re-stimulated when that sister is in her presence, or that occurred, and that is a secondary that needs to be lock scanned so that won't happen any further. Is that am I on the right page?
Well, let me say this as well, because this just popped in my head. When we look at the concept of the key in, if I'm not mistaken, a key in is the first, and this is just, as we're talking, information is coming back to my memory. A key in is the first lock on that chain.
Okay.
Okay. But you're saying from your standpoint, you're talking about the secondary. It's the secondary is the emotional content, yes?
The secondary is the incident that occurs that sends her back to the the engram that is present.
Well, that's the restimulation.
Stimulation. Okay.
But you could possibly be restimulating something that is in the secondary. Because remember, the primary engram is the moment of unconsciousness as a result of an injury or drugs or whatever, or being under anesthetized. Then you have an individual and you have a circuit, correct? The secondary contains the emotional aspect of it. The key in is what turns it all on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So all these things that we're talking about, they're all actually interconnected. They're all connected. But I want to think that based on how Sister Charlotte responded, she knows which direction she needs to go now, correct, Sister Charlotte?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Oh, see, did you hear a voice? Inflection was up. When inflection goes up, that means you're sure of yourself, yes?
Yes, sir.
She already knows. So inshallah, if it's something you can report back on, not the details, but just the progress or the win, because it already sounds like you have a little bit of a win here. Am I right to assume that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Praise be to Allah. Sister Ania.
Um, this may not be the right time for it, but could you go through the process of the development from the initial, engram or aberration, and then what comes next? As other incidents occur, at what point it's a, are we experiencing the key in, the restimulation,
Okay.
the engram, had that whole chain, what occurs first, and then what's next, and then
Like a cycle of action with regards to aberration?
right, yes.
Okay. Let me see if I can do this.
It's the cycle of aberration.
Okay, a cycle of aberration. Let's see if we can tie all these things together. And I'm going to try to, in my own mind, I'm using a demo kit of a burning building. Okay.
Okay, and include the secondaries and all of that as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at where it all starts, okay, you have some event that takes place that produces a moment of unconsciousness, correct? It could be an injury, car accident. It could be falling out of a tree. There's something that takes place that produces a momentary state of unconsciousness. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, I can't see everyone, so I'm going based on what I'm hearing. So during that moment of unconsciousness, the analytical mind clicks off and the reactive mind clicks on, correct? Now, if there's someone that's present at that moment of time, and if a statement is made at that moment in time, then the engram is now present. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Okay.
let's say, for example, now I'm gonna try to go back and forth, use a demo kit at the same time to give us some mass as we're kind of looking at this. An individual is working in the garage. They accidentally dropped a can of gasoline. They didn't clean it up, and they leave the garage. Okay. It's not technically a hazard yet, but a potential hazardous problem is present. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the engram, because we have engrams right now that haven't been keyed in. Does that make sense?
It makes sense in that when that initial incident occurs,
Mhm.
And especially like when you said like falling out of a tree or something like that, yes, you're injured, but and you experience the pain of it, you get over it at that time, but it hasn't really caused you
Mhm.
any long-term emotional drama type
Right.
pain at this point.
At this point.
Yeah.
At this point. Okay. Because if you just fell out the tree, no one was present, no one said anything, then you just fell out the tree. You got the injury, but there's nothing emotional about it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, on the mental level, we have a moment of unconsciousness, we have a person, and we have something that was said. Does that make sense? The engram is present, but it's inactive. The engram has potential energy, but not kinetic energy. Does that make sense? Come on, family, y'all got to work with me here.
Yeah, we're working with you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I want to make sure I don't want any misunderstoods as we're going forward. So I just the feedback is something I'm using just to keep my mind in a certain direction. So now that person may go, so something happened to that individual at a certain age. Okay. We go through life, we have some engrams that are on and some engrams that are off. Okay, the ones that are off are those that are still buried that haven't been keyed in yet. So now the key in is something in present time takes place that turns that engram on. Okay. So a lock is a moment of mental anguish. So someone can say something or do something that really gets under our skin. That in and of itself can be the key in, which is the first lock on the chain. That's the key in that turns the engram on. So now we're not only looking at that person for what they said, we're looking at that person and it's reminding us someone from our past. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And how
Okay.
would that be? How would you describe that in the analogy of
Okay.
garage and the fire?
Okay. So now, so the can was spilled, there's a little bit of gas, and that was left. The person that did it ran out because they didn't want to get in trouble for spilling the gas. So they have created the environment for something to happen. Now someone comes out and they're just, they're out front of the house, they're just smoking a cigarette, they throw the butt over there. Well, what happens when they throw the butt in the direction of where the gas is spilled?
Fine.
You just
Right.
started a fire, right?
Yeah.
That's the key in. Okay. So now, unknowingly, if they do it knowingly, then they're called an arsonist, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If someone does things knowingly, they're called a suppressive, yes? In the
Yes,
language,
sir.
in the language of our teaching, if they do something knowingly, they're called a hypocrite, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for future reference, God willing, when you take the Arabic word for hypocrite and you clear that word in Arabic, it aligns up with the characteristics of the suppressive person. Okay, that's going to be a future Zoom meeting, God willing, or what's called the antisocial personality. Yes. And the antisocial personality is also called we can call it an ASP, right? And what's an ASP? Sister Peggy?
A snake.
Snake. And what does Muhammad do with regards to snakes? They got to be murdered, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Why does Muhammad and any Muslim murder the devil? Because he's 100% wicked. He's a snake of the grafted type. But when you look at the word murder, if you clear the word murder also means to take away the energy of. So when we're auditing someone and we find the snake that's on the time track, by reducing the charge, are we not murdering the devil? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that person unknowingly flicks the cigarette. So they start the chain reaction. They start the chain reaction that gives us the beginning stages of the fire. Okay. In the language of Dianetics, can we call that restimulation? But that could also be the key in, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what happens is once the engram has been keyed in, it is now active. So now whenever that individual comes in contact with anything that affects that, that is another lock. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So the fire starts where the gas can was, but now it gets to the table. And what is the nature of fire? Fire travels up and out, right?
Okay.
Okay, so the fire, you ever seen fire when it hits something, it goes up, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so it gets to the leg of the table. What's going to do? It's going to travel up the leg of the table,
Then out the tape.
then across the table, right?
Right.
So what's
Okay.
happening? This is called a chain. Why? Because the fire is reaching out for more things it can contact so that it's giving itself life. Even fire wants to survive. I'm not saying that the fire is conscious of this. I'm saying based on physics, the fire is reaching out for more material because it is the nature of the fire to survive. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
See that. I see that, Brother Lukman.
Okay. And when the fire travels across the table, it's going to move to the wall. And when it gets to the wall, it's going to do what?
Go up.
Up. The fire doesn't travel down. Fire travels up. Just like aberration. It starts out emotionally, but then it travels up, right?
Right.
To our mind. So here you have the engram. The secondary is on top of the engram that contains the emotional aspect of the engram. It can be dormant, it's keyed in, and then the lock is like everything that allows that thing. So basically, we burn slowly over time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, now here comes our supreme wisdom coming to the surface now. Fire is called fast oxidation. Okay, an explosion is extremely fast oxidation. Lighting a cigarette, that's oxidation. Striking a match is oxidation. But so oxidation is telling us that fire is present. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Guess what rust is? Rust is slow oxidation over time. So we have rusty what?
Locks.
Locks.
We have rusty locks. That means we've had stuff that we've gathered over time that's been burning us slowly for years.
Wait a minute.
Does that make
Don't
sense?
get
Woo.
I'm
So we
trying to-
gotta turn these keys to get rid of these rusty locks, right?
Yes, sir.
And I can't think of the word off the top of my head. Please forgive me for this. I can't remember the Arabic. When someone else starts to talk, I'm gonna try to find the Arabic word for rust. And when we find the Arabic word for rust, it actually ties in to aspect of the text. I'll try to find it. So our rusty locks is like, because if you could detect rust, see, oxidation produces heat. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
On a minute level, if you're able to detect, if you had the right device, you could detect that rust is actually producing a certain amount of heat, but it's burning over time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So why does he fear now that he's a grown man? He was taught to eat the wrong food when he was a child. Why is he burning now that he's a grown man? He's been burning his whole life ever since he was a child. Why? Because that's when the engram was implanted and an event took place that keyed it in. So our whole life, we've been dealing with these locks. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Ani, do you have something else? Does that kind of connect a cycle of action, how they're all connected? The cycle of the engram is the same cycle of the fire. When the fire is fully developed and the room is fully inflamed, that's called what? That's called dramatization, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's called dramatization. Everything is totally or aberration, or someone acting neurotic or insane or compulsion or obsession. When those things take place, the fire is fully developed. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And where does the secondary come in?
Okay, the secondary is the emotion. That's the fuel that's on the fire. The secondary comes in, that's the emotional part of the engram. The primary part of the engram is the moment of unconsciousness, the person, and what was said. The secondary is the emotional content of that engram.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
So now what happens is when the house is fully involved in burning, you know, savage means the person that has lost the knowledge of himself and is living a beast life. Well, losing a knowledge of self in the language of Dianetics, that's called being out valence. Yes, you're in the valence of someone else. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And living a beast life is dramatization. You're acting out the actions of a person that's on the time track. Our sins don't belong to us, right?
Right.
We learned our sins from someone somewhere in the past. And because and when you look at the four flows, it's either something that was done to us or something that we witnessed.
Yes, sir.
And that became a part of our present day insanity. Our sins don't belong to us. What we have is based on being in this environment in the wilderness of North America. Because whatever we're suffering from that is a part of our aberration in present time. If we had the choice, would we choose to do it or would we choose not to do it? Because all of us have something we're fighting with, right?
Absolutely.
We would choose not to do it, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
That verifies that by nature we are righteous. Allah says in the Holy Quran, and I'll try to find this ayah, if you shun the things of this world, I will remove your evil inclination. Okay. So when you look at what we're suffering from, our character, well, I'm not even gonna say our characteristics. A skunk sprayed on us and we're carrying around the funk that don't belong to us. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's loud.
A skunk sprayed us. And I remember Mother Dianetic Muhammad said it like this. She says, when you look at a skunk, you have a black skunk with a white strip. And that's the white that's separating the black. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have something in us that's causing a division within ourselves. There was a skunk somewhere on our time track that said or did something. They sprayed us, and now we're walking around with the funk, and people looking at us like we stink, but this stink don't belong to us. It belongs to someone else, but they're long gone. Does that make sense?
Yes. That's good. Yes.
Okay. So now the next stage of the fire is we have to extinguish the fire. So what do? That's in the fire service, we add the water to the fire. And 9 times out of 10, except for where I work at, because we're short-staffed, I have to go in and start doing this by myself. Technically, you're supposed to have what's called the 2 in and 2 out rule, which means you have an officer and you have what's called a nozzleman. You have 2 people inside that structure fighting the fire. The nozzleman is focused on fighting the fire, and the officer is monitoring the conditions in the event that if this gets out of hand, the officer's job is, we're getting the hell up out of here. I got to make sure I have a route to get out in case something goes crazy, right? Well, wouldn't that be like the pre-clear and the auditor? Right? The pre-clear and
Yes,
the auditor?
sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's the pre-clear and the auditor. So that burning building, that's the reactive mind of the pre-clear, but 2 people are in there fighting that fire, right?
Absolutely.
And then once you get the seat of that fire and you get what we call it the knockdown, then we start what's called salvage and overhaul. Meaning overhaul means now you're looking for the little hot spots that might still be there, that if they're not kindled, they might flare up and cause another fire, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why does Snake gotta be murdered? Because he might sting someone else? Yes. So now you got to get the little things in the building. So once we do the auditing, now we're looking for little hot spots here and there. That's like lock scanning. Now let me clear that up. Okay, let me clear this up. Let me clear up this misunderstood over here. Clear up this misunderstood over here. And then finally, we get to the last stage where the fire is extinguished. That means that engram, so it's either a release or a clear. So we've just gone through the stages of aberration and kind of use a burning building as a demo kit. Sister Anya, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. That makes it much clearer, especially when you
Okay.
said that the secondary is the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
the content of the engram.
Okay, let's pull that up real quick so we have stable data on that. So the secondary, by definition, okay. So the secondary is a mental image picture of a moment of severe and shocking loss or threat of loss, which contains misemotion such as anger, fear, grief, apathy, or deathfulness. It is a mental image recording of a time of severe mental stress. It may contain unconsciousness. It is called secondary because it itself depends upon an earlier engram with similar data, but real pain. So the secondary depends on the primary. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Brother Lukman, you brought up what I was going to say, so I could put
Okay.
my hand down.
No,
The
well, so
mental
no,
picture
say it
image.
anyway.
It was about the mental picture image
Okay.
and trying to, understand what Sister Anya was mentioning, I was thinking to go back to before the injury occurred, where the person was possibly doing something pleasurable. And that came up in my mind because in one of the books, it deals with the mental picture images that they have at the org. And the guy is, at a baseball game. He's playing baseball, but then he gets hit with the bat. And then, so that was that temporary unconsciousness, not that he fell out, but then later on, he saw a bat in the window at a store, and he instantly got a headache. So that's what I was seeing, but the mental picture image did come up and you just brought it up.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Praise due to Allah.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you paint the picture of the person who spilled the gasoline, and then later someone comes along and they flip the cigarette and this whole chain of things started. How is that incident an engram to the person who spilled the gasoline when they're not the person who initiated the fire?
That's just a demo kit. So the person spilling the gasoline is like the person who implants the circuit. They're not affected by anything. I was just using that.
Oh, okay.
So that particular house or the resident of that house is the one who's affected. The person who initially spilled the gas is like if someone has a moment of unconsciousness and they say, don't move, that person goes on with their life and they have nothing else to do with that. That incident doesn't affect them.
Okay.
And here's another interesting thing. When you deal with fire, there's four things that need to be present for fire to come into existence. And these four things actually correspond exactly to an engram. So the first thing you need oxygen, right? You need the proper environment. Okay. The next thing you need is a fuel source. Okay. The third thing is in fire science, it's called the fire tetrahedron. So you need oxygen, which you need an oxidizer. You need what's called a reactant or a fuel. You need a heat source, and you need what's called a self-sustained chain reaction. All four elements are present in an engram because in the engram, there are all the things that were present at the time that the engram was implanted, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The heat represents the emotion. The fuel source, we could say, represents the key in, which starts the process, and that produces a self-sustained chain reaction, which is called restimulation, which is called dramatization. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So what I do is when just by taking the study tech and listening to the minister, how he teaches, the minister, he paints pictures with words. So over the years of studying the minister, but also studying not only what he teaches, but how he teaches it. When I study one subject, I ask myself the question, how can I study this over here by studying this? So when I'm at work and I'm studying my fire science is the same as engram science. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I'm studying my fire science to make me better at what I do firematically when we have to address these burning buildings and burning cars and rescuing people and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm looking at, oh, wow, that's processing. That's the same thing that we do over here in auditing. If I'm studying a book like The Art of War, which is, by Sun Tzu, if you look at the principles of the art of war, you can apply those to auditing. So I try to look at things in a way that I'm studying one thing, but how can I apply this on multiple levels? When I'm studying Dianetics, I'm saying, how can I apply that to fire science? Does that make sense? So through repetition,
Absolutely.
through repetition, it for me, it just how my mind works. Through constant repetition, the same elements that are in fighting a fire are the same elements I use to, fight an engram. It's the same elements I use on the chessboard. It's the same elements I use studying a subject. I use the same technique or tactics, and I just apply them in different areas and make little adjustments here and there. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else have anything?
Yes, sir. I do, Brother Lukman.
Go ahead, Sister Sharon.
I've been driving that bus over here suffering, man. I'm telling you. Not being able to get on and say anything, but Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Happy Savior's Day.
Walaikum salam.
Praise be to Allah. What you just mentioning, Brother Lukman, that you've been using the tech to help you with your studies.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing the same thing as far as getting back into cosmetology. I'm a licensed cosmetologist, and I put my skill down because of insecurities and just not having that confidence. But I've been, going through my mind, lock scanning, going over every situation when I was doing hair. And I got to the point where I knew what caused me to put the cosmetology down, or the hairstyling or beautician. I tapped into what caused me to put my skill down. And I'm just like, that was so stupid, or a ridiculous situation. I allowed somebody else to speak death into me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, how could I allow someone to have that much power over me? So, I said to myself a few days ago, just start back watching videos instead of paying to go back to school to relearn something that I already know that's there. It's just buried under garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, picking up my tools and communicating with my tools, picking them up, putting them down. Clipping my own end, my own split ends, cutting my son's hair. And, just being in communication with what my skill is, because I do hair very well. And, just getting back into what it is that Allah put in me. One of the things, just being able to use the tool and apply it to myself. Not that I'm auditing myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I know how to pick myself up when I get into a situation where my tone goes down. It's like, nope, shake it off. And I take myself to pleasure moments. So I'm able to do that. All praise is due to Allah. So that's one of the things I wanted to share. And also, the tech, it could be very confusing if we don't clear the words.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to study what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, introduced us to, or introduced to us, in order for us to have a better understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, like was mentioned earlier concerning me leaving the church or the churches, I was all over the place, and finding the truth in the Nation of Islam and what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, shared with me. He audited me. He straight wired me. So we have to go into those books for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that not listen to us, but, see for ourselves, what we get from it,
Mm-hmm.
from studying the tech. We have to. And it's a beneficial thing. So praise be to Allah. I just wanted to add that. Someone wanted to ask me a question.
Yeah, who was about to ask a question?
Was it Sister Denise?
It was.
Who was it?
It was Sister Denise.
Sister Denise, you had a question?
Well, inshallah, she'll get back on it.
Okay, no problem.
I'll be on so she can ask me. Praise be to Allah. But thank you for letting me share.
No, no.
And
Oh, go ahead.
you know, I thank Allah much that I finally put my head down and just locked on to them books. Like, okay, you're not stupid, no matter what a teacher said to you or another student. Look, you can learn this. Nothing supersedes supreme wisdom. And Sister Angela told me that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing supersedes supreme wisdom. And another sister, I got my inspiration from her also. She told me, look, go into the book for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sister Tina, that's the other sister. She helped me, like, look, go into that book, Sister Sharon. And I, you know, put my head down. It was rough.
Mm-hmm.
However, you know, Allah gave me strength to push through. And it's a beautiful thing. All praise is due to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. Let's look at that for just a split second. And then there's a clip I want to show us of something I just saw today. And Sister Sharon, what you just said helps me understand why I saw this today. Because I think we all need to watch. It's a real quick clip, but one concept. Sister Peggy, if you don't mind me asking, which room of your house are you in right now?
My office.
Okay, you're in your office. Okay. In mathematics, there's what's called the transitive law. If A equals B and B equals C, A has to equal C. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Peggy is sitting in her office, correct? She's not on the Starship Enterprise. She's sitting in her office, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Peggy, is that garment, is that black that you're wearing, or is it dark blue?
It's green and black.
Green and black. Okay. Sister Peggy is in her office. She's wearing a green and black garment. Therefore, the green and black garment is in the office. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If this part is true and this is true and these two truths are connected, then the conclusion has to be true, correct?
Right.
Okay. In mathematics, that's called the transitive law. Let's use the mathematics and apply it to the tech with regards to what Sister Sharon just said. L. Ron Hubbard said that there's three universes, which is another way of saying three realities. Okay. There's the reality, right? The universe in which we live. He calls it the meshed universe. Okay. So we have this reality, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then there's your individual reality. And then there's the reality of other people. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Or we could say there's the viewpoint, there's your viewpoint, and then there's the viewpoint of other people. And a sane individual is able to view in all three realities. See things from three different perspectives, right?
Right.
Okay, now what happens is this. When you're trapped in another person's reality, or by the way he explained it, if you're stuck in someone else's universe, if you're stuck in their universe, then you're subjected to the God of that universe.
Yeah.
So if a person is aberrated, if they're aberrated, that means that they're in the valence of someone that's on their time track, correct?
Right.
So now, so when they say what you can and can't do, and you listen to that, then the valence of that person, the God that is, remember, God means force and power, the God of their reality, the God of their universe, that valence that's moving them with whatever circuit is being used to move them has now become the God of your reality. So
Absolutely.
When we're like again, if A equals B and B equals, so if there's a valence that governs their reality, and we allow other people to govern our reality, then we're being governed by the God of someone else's reality.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead, Sister Sharon.
Yes, sir. Is that like children should be seen and not heard? My mother told me that. Her mother told her that. Her grandmother told her that. And I started to tell my 2 older children that, but with my 4 younger children, I'm like, nah, we're not gonna have that because they, that's teaching us to hold on to secrets. And if something's going on, we'll be afraid to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So that's somebody else's valence from 4 generations ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, sir. Praise to Allah.
Now, the fact that you said that, let me just say this real quick. It's a lesson I have to turn in today, matter of fact, page 123. What is a secret? He says, it is the answer which was never given. That's something to think about.
Wow.
Now watch this. I'll just read this real quick. He says, now, watch what the result of that would be. If you tell children they should be seen and not heard, isn't that inhibited communication?
Absolutely.
So that's also enforced ARC, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now if you inhibited the communication, then what other 2 things are you also inhibiting?
Affinity and reality.
Affinity and reality. Now watch this. He says, he says, the only thing which could be said to aberrate communication would be restriction or fear of restriction, right?
Mm-hmm.
A person who is not communicating is one who has restricted communication. A person who is communicating compulsively is afraid of being restricted in his communication. Now, what I got from that was an individual that's just always talking.
Yes, sir.
That is someone who grew up possibly, they're afraid of their communication being restricted.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A person who is talking on another subject than that to which cause was given his attention has been so restricted on the subject of communication elsewhere, or has experienced such a scarcity of communication elsewhere, that he is still involved with communication elsewhere. This is what we mean by not in present time. So you talking to someone about something and they start talking about something that's way over here somewhere, ain't got nothing to do with what we were just talking about. Some of that has to do with something in the childhood. Yes, sir, Brother
Yes,
Rashid.
sir.
Thank you for coming. So it says, so basically you said the word secret. That just came to my mind. So secrets restricting communication will affect us later on. So why does he talk compulsively now that he's an adult? Because his communication was restricted when he was a child. It's like you got to make
Yes,
up all
sir.
the time that you were told to shut up. Now you got to get it all out at one time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Are you serious, Brother LeBron?
What?
I mean,
I'm just going based on what he said in the book.
about the restriction.
Mhm.
It's like all of that is held in. So, I remember. My children's grandfather had paid my son to be quiet for 15 minutes. He paid him. I mean, he had the money in his hand. And afterwards, in maybe 5 minutes, he was quiet. And then he got up, went and gave the money back to his grandfather and said, I want to talk. He said, I can't pay this boy to be quiet.
Wow.
Like, the money don't mean nothing to me. Speaking, letting you know what I'm thinking, all of that. I want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't understand how come he gave him money and he wouldn't be quiet for the whole 15 minutes. He just gave it back to him. He said, I want to talk. I think he might have been about 8 or 9, but he wanted to talk, he said.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we people born in 30s and 40s and 50s, sometimes they the children were to be seen and not heard. It was always be quiet, because someone will hear you or the master will hear you or something, and they can't handle even as a child. Because I was saying, my mom, I was her conscience, and so she'll tell everybody to shut up, and then when she got to me, she said, when she said I couldn't go to the mosque, I was 11, because the mosque teach to hate white people. And I asked the question, well, Mom, Black people, why do we hate each other?
Wow.
If they teach us to hate, and she looked at me because she said I was her conscience, and she couldn't keep me quiet, because I would always ask questions when I don't understand, as the lessons tell. I just, I didn't understand. So why? Why do I have to be quiet when I'm talking? Don't you want to know what I'm thinking? That's what I said. Don't you want to know if your child say, I hate you? Don't you want to know that at least? And you submerge that, and you wonder why equals crazy later on in life, or crazy, no ARC at all. Or when it does, it's constantly going on and on and on and on, because it's be quiet here, is don't, is be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. And I mean, whew, how long
Stop
can
crying.
that
Stop crying before I give you something to cry about.
Oh yeah. And then you beat them and you tell them to don't cry after you beat them. And I one day I finally got a chance to ask my mother, why did she hit us when we hurt ourselves? I said, Mom, I slammed the window on my finger. Why are you hitting me? I'm already hurting. And she looked at me, and I kind of looked at her. I said, why are you hitting me? I'm hurting already. Well, you shouldn't have hurt yourself. Okay, I got that. But why are you laying hands on me? And it's not to pray for me either, because I hurt myself. I'm double hurt. You hurt me. I hurt myself. How many hurts do I need? Do I need your hurt? After I heard that, I learned the lesson. Okay, I got it. Don't stick your finger in the fire, because I got that lesson. But then I take it out the fire, and you hit me. I didn't understand that. That was the craziest thing to me. It wasn't crazy, but she made it seem like it was normal. So I mean, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, oh my God, the Rusty. I mean, what's the next stage when you get to rust? What's the next stage? Is that crumble and fall and die? And I wanted to ask you a question. What is it that a person says that kills you? Because words and tongues are powerful. But what is it that they say that kills you? You know what I'm saying? Where you're not in your purpose, you don't want to, and God forbid if you don't want to live. Okay, we're going into another era with that, because in the mental health, they were saying, okay, talk somebody down from wanting to throw themselves off of a roof. Talk them down. What you gonna say to them? Don't say don't jump. Don't say jump. I said you gotta talk them down. So what you gonna say to them? They up there. I'm a jump. I'm a jump. What you gonna say? And I remember you say what they don't expect. What? You know, like almost like you don't even see them. I was like, wait a minute. They say what you saying. Isn't it a nice day? Man, the sun is really shining over something out of nowhere. They were saying. And it's like, is that person crazy? They looking at you like, what's wrong with you? You see me up here and I'm about to take my life and you talking about the sun and how wonderful it is on my skin. You feel that, sun? And you talking to me while I'm up on the ledge, about to flip on over, call it quits. And I said, oh my God, what is it that the wording that people say that kills you, that kills your gift that Almighty God Allah gave you? And I know auditing will restore it or bring it. I know the teaching does that too. The self-improvement, the overcoming difficulty when it goes deep into Dianetics, that will assist us in, the key in to get rid of the rust off the lock.
Mm-hmm.
Because it done took over how to unlock it. Because it's rust in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to put, what is that, 40, WD-40 or something on it to lubricate it, to clean it. And I'm talking about our lives. I'm sorry, you talked about the rusty block. I'm saying, what's the next stage when it gets so rust where it crumbles and does it go to dust where you can move it anywhere?
We got to apply oil.
Sir?
So we got to apply oil.
Yeah. The wounds, like the man that the Good Samaritan in his wounds and go beyond. I'm into my zone, Brother Luke.
That's good, brother. I mean, good sister. That's what we want.
I mean, you're just bringing stuff out of me. Like I gotta get this stuff out of me because of us being not just the skunk funk on us, but the mindset and trying to get rid of it to where it doesn't affect us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even look the same anymore when we start thinking different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when you come into the nation and all of the messengers, teachings, and the diet, that was another thing I couldn't understand. How they gonna have a diet in religion? Oh boy. That was another thing about the diet. And I said, whoa. And for one person say, you gonna be skinny or you gonna be thin. I said, what's wrong with being thin? Because, in this world, you got to put some meat on you. Who said that? It was like, why do I have to do? Who made that rule and law? And why are we looking at any white women and where they are, and we should be plump? Is that slavery mindset? the barely coats that the women had to wear, skirts and stuff, and making beautiful things for the slave master's wife. I those are questions that, because we don't know our mother's dressing room. And I said, whoa. So these are things that you are bringing up in my mind on how deep auditing is and the reasons why we need to be audited.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about exposing your business. It's like an open heart surgery.
Go ahead.
And that heart is pumping and the blood is pumping and your pressure is up and you don't know why it's up. You just know you need something to bring it down, to take it out, to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can go ahead, but look. I'm sorry. It's like I was on a, it's just, it's the connecting them puzzles, connecting it, this is why this happened. This is why this happened, as I said earlier. It's a beautiful thing, real. And the minister say that a lot of times when he's up teaching us, we sending him stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm saying it because you sent it up here. Or it redirects his subject for the moment. Mm-hmm. And then he'll go to something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And said, you directed me. Okay. He said, I got a lot of notes, but somehow I just don't want to see him today. He said, I guess what? I'll get my subject matter from you, the mm-hmm. audience, when you talk to me. And we haven't said a word to him.
Mm-hmm.
But we talking to him all the time. And that's a blessing to be able to read people. I was told that my great-great-grandmother was a seer. And everybody in the neighborhood, my uncle say, would come to her. I mean, if she said, it is so. But that's what seers do. And I was like, whoa, and she didn't have any cards or anything. They didn't have that crystal ball and look into it. And she would just look at you. And like the minister, we don't know what that scroll said that was rolled down. I just know self-improvement study guides came not too long after that.
Mm-hmm.
That he gave us the study guide, a guide. So that's all. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. Thank you. Couple of points I want to make because you just brought up a whole lot of information. One is something that Brother Abdul Malik Saeed shared with us that I didn't see before. So I got to give him credit for this biblical story that he shared with us from his perspective, which again, took me to the roof. But there was something, and this is going to tie in with what Sister Denise just said, and it goes back to something that Sister Sharon has said, and it's connecting the Bible to the tech. And I think if we look at this part of the Bible from this perspective, I think it might make sense as well. Were we not always taught that in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God, then the Word became flesh?
Yes, sir.
Could we not look at that from an opposite side? Meaning this. If you look at all our aberrations, doesn't our aberrations begin with a circuit?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that a word?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't that word with a God, meaning a valence in our engram?
Yes, sir.
In the beginning was the word. The word was with God, but then that word became God,
Mm-hmm.
and then it became flesh, psychosomatic.
Yes, sir.
So in the beginning was the circuit. The circuit was with the valence.
Mm-hmm.
The circuit became the valence, dramatization.
Yes, sir.
Word became flesh, psychosomatic. Does that make sense? Does that flow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next thing, based on what Sister Denise shared. How many of us know about switches?
I've heard of them.
A light switch.
No, I'm talking about switches. I'm talking about go out and get that switch.
That you got whooped with. Yes, sir.
Okay. So maybe it wasn't a switch. Maybe it was an extension cord. Maybe it was a belt. All of us have an idea of something, and someone told us not to cry, right? Or stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when that switch, and I like how my father always described it, getting hit with a switch, because he said that when he was growing up, and he told me there's one story he did something he did one time. He said he ran away from home one day, and his stomach started growling, so he went back home, and he thought that my grandmother wasn't going to do nothing, so she acted like nothing happened. But what she would do is she would wait till they would get in the tub to take a bath. Because then all you're thinking about is covering yourself up, right?
Right.
And he said when she hit him with that switch, he said it was like 1,000 bees stinging him at one time. That's the way he said it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, I'm just having a pleasure moment with my pops. The point I'm trying to make is that when you get hit with that belt or that switch or whatever it is that you got hit with, wouldn't that produce a momentary switch from analytical to reactive?
Absolutely.
So if we're getting beat by aberrated parents because that aberration was passed down generationally, then don't cry was a circuit that was implanted in a moment of unconsciousness, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And that might be one of the reasons why some of us find it hard to cry now in present time. Why is it that he can't cry now as an adult? Because he or she was taught not to cry when they were a child. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure we sat here and we lock scanned times in our life when we got whoopings, we might be able to find some circuits in there, possibly, of what was said, which still with us today. Now, I'm going to save the biblical part for last, and then we'll get ready to close it out. What I've been studying recently is, and some of this is based on questions that pop in my head. So when a question pops in my head, I look at that as Allah sharing an idea, and then I go and take that as an assignment. I study it. Now, if we know for a fact stressful situations produce stress hormones, and stress hormones are at the root of our aberration, the question that came to my mind about a couple of weeks ago was, are there certain foods that we eat that cause stress in the body that will produce the same chemicals? The two chemicals in particular are ACTH and cortisol. And if we eat certain foods, don't certain foods produce stress in the body?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sister Patty, you about
Definitely.
to say something?
Pepper.
Okay.
Salt.
Okay. But not only that, when you look at certain foods that have what's called monosodium glutamate, MSG, that's called an excitotoxin. When you look at these sweeteners, aspartame, sucralose, oxalfame, all these chemicals in some way are toxic, correct?
Yes, sir.
If the additives, the chemicals, and the preservatives in the food are producing toxins, they're causing stress to the body, yes?
Yes, sir.
If they're causing stress to the body, the foods we eat are also working to keep us aberrated. Wouldn't that make sense?
A whole lot of sense, bro,
Yeah.
Lukman.
So that's why when you go in the Black and the Latino community, or I'll say the poor communities, because there's Caucasians there too, look at what they have in the bodegas. Look what they have in the corner stores. They have all that. I think there was a big thing now with those potato chips called Takis. There was like something happened, little kid had a heart attack or something from the Takis. I've never had those before. But what
Yes,
I'm trying
sir.
to make is when you look at what's in our community, the substandard, the food deserts, as they're called. The foods that we are consuming are causing stress in the body that's producing stress hormones. And L. Ron Hubbard already said ACTH is like a glue that keeps the engram in place. Our diet is keeping us insane. And it's been designed that way that if we stay off those foods for a certain amount of time, we go through withdrawal. Does that happen to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Remember SOS. SOS. What does SOS mean in layman's terms? SOS means distress, right?
Save our ship.
Save our ship.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And
In the chemical industry, these are the 3 ingredients for food addiction: sugar, oil, and salt. No matter what food you think of, if you're going out getting fast food, or if we're going out fast food, whatever, these 3 ingredients in precise amounts, specifically calculated, these are what's used. You just think of the fries. You think, okay, you got salt in your oil, and you got sugar there too. You can't pinpoint, think of pizza. What do you got? You got the salt, you got the oil, you got the sugar and the tomato sauce. No matter what food you choose, they're high in sodium, high in salt, and usually cooked either in oil or with oil. Does that make sense? Okay.
yes, sir.
And the last thing I'll say is this. And this is something that Brother Abdul Malik Saeed shared with us, and I never looked at it from this standpoint. This blew my mind. In the Bible, we know the story about the Good Samaritan, right? There was one that was laying
Yes,
in the
sir.
road, that was, injured in the road, and the priest and the rabbi walked by on the other side. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
But the Good Samaritan
Good.
took him to an innkeeper and gave the innkeeper some money and said, if there's more money you need, I will give it to you when I return. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And he said, when you look at in this light, the way I understood it, you look at L. Ron Hubbard as a good Samaritan, because the minister said, why would you have to use the word good Samaritan? He said, because there's probably some Samaritans that weren't good, right?
Yeah, because they weren't good.
So you use the adjective good to modify the noun Samaritan to say that normally these Samaritans are not good, but this one was good. Why? He took the one that was injured to the innkeeper, right? And now, I hope I remember this correctly, but when the laborers first went to get the tech, they went to a place, I think he said the name of the place was called Maybury Inn. And what did the minister do? The minister provided finances for us to start this journey, did he not?
That's what I heard.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
So he was connecting that story of the one injured in the road and the Good Samaritan and using it as a demo kit to describe the work of L. Ron Hubbard and the minister and the blessing that we have with regards to this text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, last but not least, go ahead, Sister Sharon. We'll give you the final comment. Maybe.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. When you said SOS, is that the Morse code?
SOS, yes, that's dot 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 dot. I think it's
Yeah,
dot dot dot
it's the
dot
alphabet,
dot
right?
dot dot. That's the distress signal.
Wait. When you said SOS, I'm like, when they send out those signals, that's a distress signal. They need help. So I was like, them engrams, we need help. And we send out the signals by our dramatizations, and we're able to see the people's minds now. And it's like, this person needs a straight wire real quick, or this person needs to be taken up in session. So when you said the SOS, I started thinking about that dot, 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 dot. And sometimes we get keyed in or we simulated, and that's how our minds go, or how my mind go. Like, I had a situation yesterday where the sister asked me a question, I go to answer her, and she started talking over me, and my mind just started racing like da 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 da. So that's what made me think about the Morse code when you said SOS.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good way of
Oh
looking at it.
Lord.
When a
Yes,
person
sir.
is aberrated, the
Right.
aberrated person. Did you finish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Remember, the aberrated person is not in their own valence. They're dramatizing someone else's personality. They're dramatizing someone else's valence. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. So our lessons say, why did we take Jerusalem from the devil? How long ago? It says, because one of our righteous brothers by the name of Jesus was buried there, right? Right?
Yes.
Yes, what I've heard that. Yes.
He was buried there. Well, there's a part of us that's buried, right?
Yes.
Right.
And we're told that he uses his name to shield his dirty religion. That's what the suppressive does outwardly. But that's what the valence is doing with us. The valence is manifesting and is shielding who we really are. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It said Jerusalem was built, if I remember correctly, Jerusalem was built by the original man who was called Jabus, also Salem and Ariel, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
When you clear those terms, Jabus, Salem, and Ariel, they represent three characteristics that we possess if we're not buried. Jabus means one who supplants, one who steps or takes control over. That we could say represents the aspect of us that takes control, the God in us, right? Salem means peace, yes?
Yes.
And Ariel, I've seen two different meanings for Ariel. Ariel means lion of God, and it also means light of God. So Jerusalem is supposed to represent who we are as an individual of conquering everything, being at peace, and being a lion. But we're buried in Jerusalem. We're in Jerusalem, but we're buried. And someone else is using us to shield their dirty religion. So the valence, we're walking around, but we're not in our own valence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The true us, the real us is still, we're buried in Jerusalem when we're supposed to be Jerusalem. That's just a thought that just popped in my head as we were talking.
Yes, sir.
It's in our lessons. It's in our lessons.
It is.
It's in our lessons.
Man.
Memorization is the first step. Then we got to dig. We got to find the jewels that Allah shows us, because the minister said, what? If we just parakeet information, then we're just intellectual cowards. What is your truth? Don't worry about my truth. You got to find your truth. What is true for you? That's what they always say in the text. What is true for you? That's why we don't what? We don't invalidate. We don't evaluate.
Right.
People, someone had asked me a question. I was talking to a Scientologist, and they asked the question about, speaking to other people from different religions. He says, well, how do you guide them to Islam? I said, my job is not to guide them to Islam. If they're wherever they are, our goal is to make them better where they are. If they're a Buddhist, then they have to become a better Buddhist. If they're a Christian, become a better Christian. Me personally, I'm not trying to convert people to be a Muslim.
That's right.
Our religion, I've always believed this my entire life. Religion is like a garment. You have to wear what fits you. And if you change your body, you might have to change your garment, but that's a decision that you have to make. But if I'm with a Buddhist, I'm not going to try to convert them to come to the nation.
That's right.
The goal is let's get some ARC with our dialogue. And then now the Buddhist and the Muslim can sit down together and become brothers. I've been in contact with individuals from the Baha'i faith. I want to learn more about the Baha'i. I started reading one of the religious books of the Baha'i. I'm like, oh, this is the text. This is Islam. Me personally, I can see the relationship between the different religions. I'm not trying to convert people because you can't convert me. So, you know,
That part, yes, sir.
yeah. So that, and see, when a person, and it's just my humble opinion, when a person says, no, I'm not going over there, you know, so that they're a Buddhist and that means you're not stable in your faith. You're not convinced. You're not convicted about what you believe in. You ain't pulling me from the minister. You ain't pulling me from this teaching. You ain't pulling me from Islam or Allah. You know, I respect the Buddhists, but you ain't see Bro Luke Mom with no robe on.
Come on.
You know, I'm not that's not where my piece is. I can respect it, I can study it, I can go to a Buddhist temple, I'd be willing to partake in certain things and experience certain things to add to my Islam, but I ain't worried about no one converting me.
Come on, brother. Yes, sir.
Oh, nah, I can't do that. Sorry. I got too much invested in this. Let me see, look at the chat real quick. Sister said, I'm driving this bus. And when you said that, Sister Sharon, I looked at it from two different perspectives. Like you were saying, well, I'm driving this bus.
Yes, sir, because I was speeding.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to where I got to go so I can pull over and ask some questions. I have so much to say.
Absolutely. Allahu Akbar.
That's the impression I got, Sister Denise, isn't it? Okay. Yes. Stress from toxic food is like cortisol drip that has to be titrated carefully. Sister Peggy, can for those that don't know about titrating and drips, can you just explain that so we get some stable data on that? I mean, I cracked up laughing because I understand it, but not everyone might understand that.
There are some IV medications that if it's on a drip, you know, if it's dripping and you get an order to stop the drip, you don't just stop it. You have to back off of it. It's like being on oral steroids, or like you can't do it right away because it may cause more harm than good. And that's what happens to us. When you explained about the stressful food, this food that causes the stress, we eat the food, and I heard one of the sisters say that you just can't just get off the food right away. You have to do it slowly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening to us. We have such stress from the food that we eat, and on the cortisol, it doesn't even get a chance to stop. It's just a constant drip, 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 drip. And when you want to stop it, you can't stop it right away. You just have to back off little by little, little by little.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Most definitely. Anyone else before we close it out? I want to just show this one clip real quick, and then we will call it a day. Wow, I tell you, time flies.
Brother Lukman,
Yes, ma'am.
after you've shown the clip, are you going to give us a brief overview of your trip, or are you going to wait till next time?
Look, I don't go back to work till Saturday. I got time. If you want to stay, we can still talk about the trip. That's fine. That's not a problem. I don't mind.
Okay.
I don't mind at all. Let me pull this up. Let's see. I just found this today. I don't think it's a coincidence. Let's see. share screen. There we go. And you see, so that's see, that's what we were talking about before. This is the reactive mind. This is the pre-clear and the auditor. Can you see it? And they're working to get rid of this engram. What's that? Let's see. Okay. Let me. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
You've been a part of that you don't even realize are a part of your life and your energy right now. We're just being in the energy of these people energetically, without knowing it, have been throwing daggers at you your entire life. They've been throwing daggers at you because they resent you. They resent the beauty that is within you. They resent the power that is within you. And in actuality, they resent you for being a mirror for who it is that they can become if they were to let go of their own guilt, shame, and fear. So this is on an energetic level. This is why when you're around certain people, it just feels off. It's because energetically their hooks are in you. And you got to make a list of who these people are. And sometimes it's people that you truly love. But in order for you to become your highest self, you've got to learn to let go and to release them to be who they're intended to be, so that you can be released who you are intended to be as well. Energetic.
That makes sense. Sister Tina, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Lukman. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. We didn't hear from you all day, so we got to at least get something from you.
Oh, I've been in contemplation, just listening to everyone and seeing where it fits with me. And I was, well, just one thing I want to share. I was reading Science of Survival, and I was on page 37 the other day. I'm on 39, but I just couldn't seem to go any further because something stopped me on 37, talking about it's talking about well, it's dealing with column E, medical range, and it's dealing like psychosomatic illness and so I was reading on 37 about bacterial infection and how it assists engrams or assisted by engrams. And so it just took me to a place, you know, where they gave me the steroid drops for my eyes in 2000, and I developed what feels like bacterial infection in my chest, you know, where I have a chronic cough. So I looked up if steroids cause bacterial infection, and sure enough, steroids cause bacterial infection. So I said, wow, so this is not psychosomatic, this cough. This actually is from them doing something to me. So it took me somewhere else. So I wound up talking to my supervisor in regards to, you know, that, and understanding N theta and how much N theta you got that causes, you know, the illnesses and all of that. And so I wasn't understanding it. But as he asked me questions, I was answering, and he said, you got it, but I really don't have it, you know? So, but I felt something coming up in me, tears coming up in me, because it took me back to an engram that I might have gotten at 16, you know, because of a dentist actually hurting me, trying to hurt me, trying to cause problems. But anyway, I wind up, you know, calling someone and, you know, talking to them about it. All praise is due to Allah. But long story short, reading that in the Science of Survival, it brought something up out of me that's deep in me that I didn't know was so deep. I knew it was a problem there because, when I had, whatever they did to me, they had to put me to sleep. And I was 16. So I knew something must be there because I was unconscious, but, and talking to the person, I was crying, cussing. Oh my God. I mean, all kinds of demons, came out. And so the person was very patient with me. And, I didn't know that it was that bad. So I do need to go through a session, an actual auditing session, just to find out what that is. But reading about bacterial infection and how it relates to how engrams assist bacterial infections, I thought that was very interesting. So I kind of like got processed by the reading. Through the reading, I was processed. So all that came up. So I know something needs to be addressed because it's something, there for real. Yeah. So if you understand what I'm saying, Brother Lukman.
No, I understand. First, education is one of the 4 valid therapies, correct?
Yes.
Second is when you look at bacterial infections, and I know Sister Peggy's busy right now, but she's still listening. Remember a little while back, we looked at the relationship between parasites and aberration?
Yes.
Okay. Anything that will change the internal environment, okay? Because typically, from my understanding, diseases thrive in an acidic environment. When the environment is acidic, it's producing stress in the body. And anytime you're producing stress in the body, what are you doing? You're producing stress hormones, correct?
Yes.
So to me, that's kind of like a chemical way of explaining the relationship between bacterial infections and being having a engramic bank. And then one feeds the other. So the more engrams we have can possibly produce the environment that causes it to be acidic, that produces the chemistry that keeps the engrams in place. The engrams are keeping the system in place. So when you look at just fasting, page 50, I think, of Our Savior Has Arrived, book 2. Does not the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad say that if you want to increase yourself on a spiritual level, fast for 3 days?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Well, what's taking place during the 3 days with respect? How can we relate that to the tech? Well, for those 3 days, your body converts from carbohydrates to ketones. Your system goes from being acidic to alkaline. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. Then, because your body is not focused on digestion, your body goes into a state of what's called autophagy. AUTOPHAGY. Auto meaning self, and phagy meaning to eat. The body goes into a process of self-eating, meaning it goes through and cleans out the body. So during the fasting, it's cleaning out and attacking. The immune system increases, which allows it to go after all those bacteria that are causing the problem. So just by our fasting, that's why fasting is a prescription. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it's not only a prescription on the physical level, he said it's a prescription for our mental illnesses. Does he not say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just through fasting is a type of, if we do Dianetic processing to clear up what's on in the mind, fasting is like anatomical processing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Okay. tell me if this sounds like what you're saying. Last week I was attempting a 9-day fast because Brother Shahid said around 2015 that it's a natural detox, a 9-day fast. And I tried it twice already, you know, and it is. So I said, okay, I need to detox. Let me do this natural fast, 9 days. So I attempted it. The 9th day was supposed to have been Saturday, but it wasn't working on me like it was those other 2 times I did it. So I wound up having to come down after 6 days. So I came down, I guess Wednesday, this last Wednesday, I came down. So I did 6 days. In that, during that time, I was not into the science, into my coursework, because I was really concentrating on the fast. After the fast, you know, I got back into my coursework, and that's when I read about, you know, the bacterial infection, and it brought up what it brought up in my mind. And, you know, I started, you know, making a tea out of a herb that I know is good for bacterial infection, and it's working. And it's working. So I did this chapter before, and that didn't come up when I did it last year. I did up to lesson 7, you know, last year, but I started from the beginning, you know, about 3 weeks ago. But anyway, this came up. So what you just said, is it because of the fast, the cleaning out, I was more sensitive to what was going on within me, so that reading about the bacterial infection impacted me like it did, which caused me to examine what's happening with me?
Do you think that's what happened?
When you said what you said, that's what came to my mind. Yeah, because I just did a 6-day fast, just coffee and water. You know, coffee with a little cream and sugar.
How many other wins did you have as a result of that fast?
The detox didn't take place like it did the other 2 times that I did it. However, I was coughing up some mucus from that area, that mass that developed in my chest from the steroid drops that they gave me in 2000. So, and my nose running a lot, you know, mucus coming up. So that was a win, you know. So the focus wind up being on that mass that was in my chest, and that's in my chest, which is bacterial infection. Because I from the steroid drops, you know. So that was a win. Another win is I started to become more in tune with wanting to, you know how to make healthier, you know, little meals, like with avocado, guacamole. How do you say it?
Guacamole.
Yeah, so I got a couple of suggestions on that, and some other things, and, you know, just, you know, to keep me off any stupid stuff like cheese puffs, you know. So,
Sister,
yeah,
do you like chocolate pudding?
I do, but they don't make it like they used to. So
Okay.
no.
Go online, Google. There's a way you can make chocolate pudding using avocado, and it tastes just like chocolate pudding.
Well, I love chocolate ice cream, Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream, but there's a way to make chocolate pudding using avocado.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna Google that. It's probably with
Google
carrot.
it. It's guacamole, cocoa powder, and I think a little bit of sugar. And And when it has the same texture and consistency as chocolate pudding, and you can't even tell that you're eating guacamole, or you're not eating an avocado.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna Google that.
Yeah,
Chocolate
it's called, I think it's called vegan chocolate pudding.
vegan chocolate pudding. Okay, because I used to love chocolate pudding, but they don't can't get it like I used to like it nowhere.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. All right, so that's what I got. So I got quite a so those are 2 wins, and more focused. I became more focused on me,
Mhm.
and you know, on what I have to do for me. And been acting on it, like making sure I get me some sun, at least 30 minutes every day when it's out. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay. I'll make this brief statement, then I'll give Sister Anya the floor, and she'll close us out. One of the reasons why those medications don't work, I'm gonna give an example. Think about, and as I'm describing this, I want us to mock this up in our mind. Give us a mock up. Picture a kitchen that the garbage is overflowing. And if the garbage is overflowing and the garbage is never taken from the kitchen, what will you also have in your kitchen?
Rats, mice,
Maggots and flies.
Rats, mice, flies, what else?
Maggots.
Maggots. What else do
stanky,
you have in? Huh?
stanky odors.
Okay. Okay. Now, remember, as above, so below. This is the law of correspondence. If you have garbage in your kitchen and you never take the garbage out, that means the garbage is going to build up. You might have mice, rats, maggots, roaches, and flies, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you put some rat traps down, you have some bug spray, take care of all that. All the flies are dead, mice have been caught, maggots are gone. In about another week or two, what are you going to have in your kitchen? And you can spray stuff to take care of the odor. Okay, now it smells like, citrus or lemon or whatever you got. Now, a week or 2 weeks later, what's your kitchen going to be like?
If you still haven't taken the garbage out,
Haven't taken garbage out, so what's going to happen? You're going to have the mice, the rodents, the maggots, the flies, and the roaches, and the funky smell, correct?
right.
Okay, because the problem is not the mice and the roaches and the flies. They're doing what they do naturally. Their presence is showing that something is present that's not supposed to be there, correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
So how do you solve the problem of the mice, the roaches, the flies, the maggots, and the funky smell?
Take the garbage out and keep the garbage from piling up like that.
Exactly. So when we're fasting, we're allowing the body to get rid of the garbage. In this instance, the rats, the flies, the maggots, and the roaches internally are the bacteria. Bacteria and parasites only thrive where there is garbage. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
When someone has very, very bad breath, they can chew all the mints they want. It's not going to take care of the bad breath, because where does bad breath originate sometimes?
In the gut.
It's in the gut. I'll share this quick story. We were transporting a patient years ago. This is probably about, let's see, I'm almost 20 years now in the fire department. So this is about 20, 25 years ago. We were transporting a woman, and she had tried to commit suicide. She had end-stage intestinal cancer. And I was in the back of the ambulance during the transport, and I couldn't understand why it smelled so horrible back here. So I thought, because she had a diaper, but she was under a blanket. She was not cognizant at all because she tried to kill herself and she messed it up. And I thought maybe something was leaking. I'm looking, there's nothing. And I can't figure out, what is this odor? It was the absolute worst smell I had ever smelled my entire life. So the I got between, in the ambulance where you can get between the little thing and you can talk to the driver and the passenger. I speak to the medic. I said, "What is that smell?" He says she has end-stage intestinal cancer. That is the smell of her intestines rotting, and it's coming out through the mouth.
Wow.
So she's rotting on the inside, but it's coming out. Some of us have bad breath because we haven't got to that part yet, but we're so backed up that the odor of what's rotting in our intestinal tract is actually coming out of our mouth. Mints, mouthwash, chewing gum. You can wear all the Egyptian musk that you want. When the body is backed up, it starts to shunt the odor through the lungs and the skin. So you can put all the deodorant on you want. You can spray all the perfume and the Egyptian musk and the China musk, and you can bathe in it. Unless you empty the garbage, all these things, when the deodorant is worn out and it's no longer a secret. So that's why it's so important for us to follow our teachings. It is a prescription. We are emptying the garbage so that all those things in our body that would be like demo kits for rats and roaches and flies on the level of bacteria and parasites and virus, or not so much viruses, but bacteria and parasites. In detoxing the body, we're getting rid of all that. We're changing the internal environment of our body. But when we get to the part of where our body begins to operate on ketones, this is for you, Sister Tina, our brain works better on ketones. Our thinking is more clearer on ketones. Our brain operates better when it's operating off of that as a fuel source versus carbohydrates. So it's no coincidence that when we do our fast and we go back and read certain things, we're going to see things from a different perspective, because our thinking is not going to be, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that when he fasted for a amount of days, didn't he say his mind was so clear or clean that he could hear insects walking?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think you're right on it. Just the fact that you did 6 days, I applaud you. If I had a hat, I'd take my hat off to you, and I would give you your props, because 6 days is, to me, is,
Yes, sir. All praise due to Allah. All praise is due to Allah. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sister Ania. We'll give you the last statement, and then I'll shut down this part of the meeting, and then whoever has any questions about this weekend, we'll do that. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Wow. All praises due to Allah. I guess all of that was in tune. Allah has us all in tune. The other day, I came across in How to Eat to Live, book 2, where it mentions about the 9-day fast that Sister Tina mentioned. And it mentioned some other things there that I wanted to share. But based on what you just said, Brother Lukman, you gave a very high descript to what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying here in the book. He says it a little bit more pleasantly than you said. As Sister Sharon put in the chat, she said, distasteful attitude. So that was very descriptive, but very true, because when we fast, of course, it's pulling out the toxins, and this is what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about. But it pulls those toxins out, and sometimes if we have not, especially if we've not fasted at all in a very long time, or have never fasted, especially if we're at the stage where we're eating 3 meals a day, eating meat at most of those meals, and then a person tries to do a 6 or a 9-day fast, they're going to experience some horrible things. Because
Yes.
number one, it's pulling all of those toxins out very, very quickly and throwing it into the bloodstream. And it becomes too much for that person's body to handle. All of those toxins swirling around, making the circuit around the body every 500 seconds, 8 minutes and 20 seconds. The eyes become really brown, headaches, pain in all of our joints and all of those type of things. So oftentimes when we go on these long fasts, we have to prepare the body ahead of time by doing, maybe changing the diet, eating more salads and fruit and vegetables in our meals, cutting out the junk food ahead of time before you start these long fasts. So a person may need to do a whole month of preparation to do a long fast. And then start with maybe a 1-2 day fast every week or something like that, or even a 3-day fast, building up to a 3-day fast every week before you attempt that longer fast. You've got to get some of those toxins out. Otherwise, you're going to be really miserable during your long fast. And then the other thing is that not only is the toxin there from foods, but if a person is on medication, the residue that's left over from those medications is also building up in the body, and that gets pulled out too into the bloodstream. So now you've got the effect of toxin and bacteria from food and bacteria, but also from those medications, and all of that's swirling around in your bloodstream, and so you're going to be very miserable. So here's stable datum to all of those comments, Sister Tina's, Brother Luke Mons, and the information I just shared as well. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and this is on page 47, book 2 of How to Eat to Live. Fast, it cleans the impurities out of the blood and causes the body to eliminate the poison stored in it from previous meals, sometimes from previous meals of many years. As the folds of our intestines can carry particles of food for a long time and hold strength enough in them to keep us alive for 2 months. Our bodies store food in the folds of the intestines and in the bloodstream. After a fast of 3 days, and from that to 9 days, these particles of food and poison that have accumulated will be eliminated. The blood is being cleansed of its impurities because the impurities have nothing to keep them in power to live. Therefore, they die and leave the person happy and enjoying the results of a healthy body, which is the greatest enjoyment we can have. And that's from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All praise is due to Allah, Sister Anya. What page is that?
Page 47.
In book 2.
Book 2, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all praise is due to Allah. Yes,
Allahu
ma'am.
Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Mind if I paint one more distasteful picture? Have you ever seen those shows called Hoarders?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite shows.
Okay, and you look at the inside of the homes, And then sometimes that there's no more room in the home. So now you got a lot of stuff that's in the garage, and you might have stuff that's in other parts outside on the porch, more stuff being stored all over the place, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm.
The adipose tissue, the fat, fat is this one of the reasons why we have fat outside of keeping us warm. Fat is also designed to store toxins. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The natural mechanism of the body is to take toxins out of what they call the systemic or the circulation, get the toxins out and store it away, because the body has a program that is supposed to establish longevity. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it is the fool that's living in the suit that's causing the problem. Does that make sense? So by us not thinking right and not eating right, when we're taking in these toxins, if the body has to store the toxins in the fat, that means every time we bring in more toxins, the body has to produce what? Come on.
More fat.
Have to produce more fat. So for some of us, and I'm talking about me because I'm trying to lose some fat, if we're working out and trying to exercise, but we're still eating the same, the body's not going to lose the fat because we're still putting in the toxins. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we can't work out and then go have pizza.
Mhm.
We can't work out and still take in toxins, because the body is going to hold on to the fat in order to hold on to the toxins. And as Sister Ani was saying, you know, the Most High Elijah Muhammad says that you don't just start with a 3-day fast, right? You have to do it on a gradient. He doesn't use the word gradient, but that's what he's saying. You got to do fasting on a gradient, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we try to fast too fast, what happens to all those toxins? We get hit with those toxins, and then we go through some. I think there's a type of. I think I've heard the statement fasting flu. Have you ever heard that before?
Healing crisis.
Healing crisis. It's a healing crisis. The toxins are coming out too fast, and then we get too sick, and we say, then we have this crazy thought that how do you to live must be wrong. No, it's not that how do you to live is wrong. It's just that we didn't do it on a gradient. Okay, we got to do it on a gradient. And as we do that on a gradient, and as we clean up our diet, the body says, oh, I have less toxins. I don't need all this fat. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
For some of us, we're all adults, and this is not too crazy, but our intestinal tract looks the same way those homes look like in hoarders. There's just a little path you can use to get through, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's why some of us, we might need a little help every once in a while, because you got the little path going through.
Yep. Sir.
I'm not going down that road. Let me stop right there. Okay. So so when you see hoarders, just say, wow, this is a demo kit for my large intestines.
This is why Dianetics is meant to solve every problem in our life.
Yes.
Because when you said the fasting crisis, I'm so happy because something Dianetically finally has clicked with me. When you said that, it took me to part of those 3 items when we have a misunderstood word. It's either the misunderstood word, it was too steep of a gradient, and I forgot the other one.
Lack of mass.
A lack of mass, but that too steep of gradient, that's what it clicked with me when you said we were dieting or fasting, releasing the toxins too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, so that I'm just rambling, but that clicked with me. With that was a too steep of a gradient, medically speaking.
See, Clear Body, Clear Mind is one of the books. That's the book that we use in the Purif. And if you read Clear Body, Clear Mind, you can parallel that book and line it up with How to Eat to Live. It's just that the Purif is like a 2 to 3 week, depending on when you get what's called your end stage phenomena. It's like a 2 to 3 week intensive How to Eat to Live, because you're sweating, you're taking vitamins and minerals into the body that you probably haven't taken into the body ever. And the two key things you're taking in are thiamine and niacin. And then when you look at How to Eat to Live, where's thiamine and where's niacin? Well, niacin is in the navy bean and thiamine is in the wheat bread. So we have the same thing that they have in the Purif. It's just that ours is a proactive Purif over a lifetime, and that is a purification that's done as an intensive to prepare you to go to clear. But if you read that book, it parallels with How to Eat to Live. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So what I will do now is I will end this part. I will end